It's one thing to daydream about leaving your urban life behind and then heading off to the country and live off the land. It's quite another thing if you actually do it. You can start by maybe throwing any romanticized notions out the window, because I'm going to tell you as a farm girl, it is a lot of work, and our guests know that firsthand. In 2003, Brent Preston and Gillian Flies, they fled Toronto and bought a rundown farm outside of Creemore, Ontario, and now their story of turning it into a thriving, organic, sustainable business, it's laid out in the pages of the book, The New Farm, and both Brent and Gillian join us now in studio. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we take a look behind us, this sprawling, beautiful farm, but we're going to start at the beginning of the story and the beginning of the book, because it begins with a very difficult story about chickens. I'm just going to say that. Difficult. People pick up the book, they will read it and understand what I'm saying. But you knew little about livestock and agriculture and all of these animals. How difficult was it when you actually started and you hit the ground?
Well, it was really tough. It was we really didn't have much of a clue what we were doing. Gillian grew up on a farm in Vermont, so she had more of an idea than I did. I grew up in Scarborough, but we had to learn everything sort of from scratch by the seat of our pants when we started.
It's very ambitious. There's another story in the book you talk about growing and raising your own food, which also means growing and then having to kill your food as well. And you actually, a few years in, you had a change of heart about some of the animals that you were going to have on the farm, particularly pigs. There's a great story in the book about the farm dog getting burrs, and you noticed that the dog went to the pig pen where the pigs would start to deburr puppy.
Yeah.
So now you say to yourself, listen, this is going to change how we look at these animals. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's I'm coming from a background where I was also a vegetarian for 13 years.
Wow.
So it was, but growing our own food, you can actually justify certain animals if you see that they're raised in the right way. But pigs are a little bit different. They're smart, and they almost became like pets to our family. The kids had named them, and it just became more difficult to actually think about killing them for food when there's plenty of other vegetables around to eat.
Yeah, and we would kill and butcher our animals ourselves on the farm. Mm-hmm. So we were forced to really confront all of the realities of eating meat, from getting the animals when they're very small to learning their personalities and becoming attached to them, and then actually having to pull the trigger and kill them in the end, which was It was tough.
Tough, and this also was not easy on your relationship as a couple. So Brent, you write, quote, I had come to see Gillian more as an antagonistic business partner than as my beautiful, caring wife. Yeah. There was a lot of times that this was just so hard, you thought, why don't we just throw in the towel? What got you through?
I think it was really tough, and that was the hardest part, was on our relationship, having to run a farm business together and work together side by side all the time, plus raising kids and doing all those other things. But I think what got through it was, we really worked well together, and we have really complementary skills for this sort of business. But also, we had a real political motive from the outset, where we wanted to prove that this kind of small-scale, sustainable farming was a viable business, and that you really could make money at it, that it really could be a viable alternative to the sort of chemical, industrial, agricultural system that dominates the landscape.
And by all accounts, you've succeeded at that now, because you do work with a lot of restaurants in particular and local communities to provide this organic food. Your story is interesting because when you talk about political, there's actually one chapter entitled Los Muchachos. Yeah. And as anybody in the agricultural world in Canada certainly knows, migrant workers, foreign workers are vital to this whole ecosystem. And it was interesting because you had struggled with this idea of migrant workers and foreign workers. Take us through a little bit about that thinking.
Go ahead.
Well, I originally come from Vermont. I'm from the States, and foreign agricultural workers down there have a completely different situation than they have here in Canada. So we kind of came to that with the same stereotypes that people here would imagine, like not unfair wages and poor living conditions and not being treated fairly. And so we kind of came in with that. But when we have the program in Canada is really amazing, and there's fair pay, and the housing is inspected. And granted, there's plenty of issues with the program here in Canada, don't get me wrong, but we found that we could have an amazing team and feel good about what we're doing.
I know we don't have much time, but listen, there's a bit of a rock star component to your place because you had the Tragically Hip play a full concert on the farm. How does that happen?
Well, we for a long time we've had a relationship with good food organizations, organizations like the Community Food Centres Canada and the Stop Community Food Centre here in Toronto. And one of our goals from the beginning was to make our food accessible to so that as many people as possible could eat this good, healthy, sustainable food. So we hold a fundraising event on our farm every year. We have chefs come from all the restaurants that we sell to, cook on the farm, and then we have a band play in the barn. And we're lucky enough to we've had Sam Roberts, we've had Stars, we've had Sloan, all kinds of great bands. And a couple of years ago, the Tragically Hip played, which was an absolute thrill. It was incredible. But there's so many people who want to be involved in this kind of agriculture and who want to support this kind of food. And so we get all sorts of people volunteering and helping out, from chefs to bands and musicians, and everyone wants to be involved in it.
Well, listen, if people want to learn more about you and about this entire lifestyle and just the fascinating story, we want to remind them to pick up the book. But first, I want to thank you both for joining us and sharing your amazing story this morning.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. Let's remind viewers the book is called The New Farm, and you can pick it up right now.